Here's a question I want you to sit with. Not a trivia question, not a theological debate, just a real question that I think every man and every woman who loves a man needs to ask. What does it actually look like to be a good man? Not perfect, not some impossible standard nobody can reach, but genuinely good, a man whose character holds up not just when people are watching, but in the dark, when there's no audience, when the easy choice and the wrong choice are basically the same thing. I've been sitting with that question, and every single time I end up in the same place, the same chapter, the same man. His name is Boaz. And before I tell you who he was, I need to tell you when he lived, because the when changes everything. The Book of Ruth opens with one of the most ominous phrases in all of Scripture. In the days when the judges ruled. That's your first signal. The era of the judges, roughly 1200 to 1000 BC, was without question the most morally chaotic period in Israel's entire history. Scholars call it a time of cyclical collapse. The people would fall away from God, suffer the consequences, cry out for rescue, and repeat the whole cycle again. And the final verse of the book of Judges, the very last sentence, summarizes the whole era in one devastating line. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Judges 21:25. Now, sit with that. Because it doesn't say everyone did what was wrong. It says they did what was right in their own eyes. No shared moral compass, no accountability, no agreed-upon standard for what goodness even meant. Does that sound familiar? That is the world Boaz woke up to every single morning. And here is how the Bible introduces him. Not with a long backstory, not with a dramatic scene, just 3 words in the Hebrew, Gibor Chayu. Gibor Chayu. In English, a man of standing. But the Hebrew carries so much more. Gibor, strength, might. Chayil, virtue, valor, moral excellence. This is the same word used in Proverbs 31:10 for a woman of noble character. Boaz is her male counterpart, a man of noble character, standing upright in a world that had forgotten what that even looked like. In a culture where no one seemed to have this anymore, Boaz did. Boaz goes out to his fields one morning. He greets his workers, warmly, genuinely, with the words, "The Lord be with you." In the time of the judges, this was not a common thing to say. This was a man who brought the name of God into his Monday morning, into his workplace, into his ordinary interactions. That is the texture of who he was. And then he looks across the field. He notices a woman, foreign, widowed, working at the far edge of the harvest, gleaning, which means she's picking up whatever the harvesters accidentally dropped. This was the provision God had built into the law of Moses for the most vulnerable, the poor, the widow, the foreigner. Ruth was at the very bottom of the social hierarchy of Bethlehem. Boaz sees her. He doesn't just glance. He asks his foreman, "Whose young woman is this?" And the foreman tells him Ruth's story, the Moabite woman who came back with Naomi, who has been working since early morning without stopping to rest. And then Boaz does something significant. He doesn't send a message. He doesn't delegate a kind gesture. He walks over himself, directly to Ruth, and he says, "I've been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since your husband's death, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with people you didn't know before." Ruth 2:11. He already knew her story. Before he ever spoke to her, he had already heard it, considered it, and been moved by it. This was not impulse. This was not charm. This was intentional attention, the kind of attention that says, "Your life matters enough for me to find out who you are." And then, quietly, without any fanfare, he tells his workers to deliberately leave extra grain for her, to let her drink from their water jars, to make sure not a single person harasses her. No one required this. No law demanded it. No one would have noticed if he hadn't. This is hesed. Hesed. The Hebrew word that Naomi uses later when she sees what happened, when she recognizes that God himself has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. Hesed is covenant love, faithful love, the love that keeps showing up, not because it's convenient, but because that is simply who you are. Boaz had it, but the real test of that character had not yet arrived. The harvest season was ending, and Naomi came to Ruth with a plan. She said, "And I want you to hear how bold this was." She said, "Tonight Boaz will be at the threshing floor. Go down, wash, put on your best clothes. When he lies down to sleep, uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do." Ruth trusted. Ruth obeyed, and she went. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke up startled, reaching out in the dark, and there, lying at his feet, is someone. "Who are you?" he asks, his voice low. And Ruth says, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a kinsman redeemer." Ruth 3:9. I want you to feel the weight of this moment. There is no one watching. None. The other workers are asleep around them. Naomi is back at home. There is no witness, no accountability, no record of whatever happens next. Boaz is a man of wealth and status. Ruth is a foreign widow with no one to protect her. She has placed herself entirely under his judgment. He could have taken advantage, easily. He could have sent her away with a cold word. He could have done 100 things that the darkness would have swallowed whole. Instead, here is what comes out of his mouth. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than the first. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask." And then, one more sentence. One sentence that stops me every single time I read it. "All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." Ruth 3:10-11. In the middle of the night, in the dark, when she could not see his face, when no one would hear what he said, when there was absolutely no benefit to him for saying it, he told her who she was. He didn't affirm her to impress her. He didn't say it to manage the moment. He said it because he believed it, because he had already seen her, already measured her character, already understood what the rest of the town had overlooked. That is what integrity looks like. Not the absence of temptation, the presence of character, especially when temptation is standing right in front of you. But Boaz had one problem. There was another man, a closer kinsman redeemer, who had first legal rights to redeem Naomi's family land. And with that land came the obligation to take Ruth as his wife. The law was clear, and Boaz knew it. He could have stayed silent. No one would have questioned it. He could have found a quiet way around it, handled it privately, moved forward without the messy public confrontation. But Boaz goes to the city gate. In ancient Israel, the city gate was the courthouse, the public square, the place where every significant legal and community decision was made, openly, formally, before witnesses. And Boaz sits down there, and he waits. When the other kinsman walks by, Boaz calls out, "Turn aside, friend. Sit down here." He gathers 10 elders as witnesses. He lays the whole situation on the table. The other man hears about the land, and he's interested. Yes, he says, he'll take it, But then Boaz says, "On the day you buy the land, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow, in order to carry on the name of her dead husband." Ruth 4:5. The man goes quiet. You can almost see him calculating. If he takes Ruth, any son she bears would legally carry her deceased husband's name, which would complicate his own estate, his own inheritance. The numbers don't add up for him. "I cannot redeem it," he says. "I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Ruth 4:6. He removes his sandal, the ancient ceremony for transferring a legal right, and he walks away. Two men, same opportunity, same information, same choice on the table. The first man saw a cost, and he left. The second man saw a person, and he stood up. Boaz turns to the 10 elders and says, publicly, formally, irrevocably, "Today you are witnesses that I have acquired from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite to be my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." Ruth 4:9-10. Not whispered, not privately, before the whole town, before 10 elders, in the most public place in Bethlehem. He declared her. He named her. He took on full legal and moral responsibility, voluntarily, in front of everyone. That is what public commitment looks like. Not a feeling that fades, a declaration that stands. Boaz married Ruth. And Ruth conceived, and she bore a son. The women of Bethlehem named him Obed, which means one who serves. And Naomi, the woman who came home empty, who called herself Mara, bitter, took that little boy in her arms. And the bitterness let go. Obed would become the father of Jesse. Jesse would become the father of David. David, the king, from whose line the Messiah would come. And centuries later, when a man named Matthew sat down to open his gospel account of the life of Jesus Christ, he wrote a genealogy, tracing every generation from Abraham to the Son of God. And there, in Matthew 1:5, these names appear side by side. Boaz, the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. God put this man's name in the family tree of Jesus, a man who did what was right in a world that had forgotten what right looked like. A man who saw a foreign widow gleaning in a field and truly saw her. A man who kept his word in the dark and his integrity in the light. His name is in that list forever. And I want to ask you, quietly, what do you think God does with the choices you make in the dark? When no one is watching, when the easy thing and the wrong thing look exactly the same, do you think he doesn't see? 3 things Boaz still teaches men today. First, integrity is not what you perform. It is who you already are. Boaz didn't decide in the moment on that threshing floor to be a good man. He had been becoming one for years, in the small things, in the daily choices, in the quiet faithfulness that nobody gave him a reward for. Character is not a crisis decision. It is the accumulation of 10,000 small moments when you chose right and nobody saw. Second, godly love begins with truly seeing another person. Hesed is not a feeling you fall into. It starts with asking whose that young woman is. It starts with hearing her story before you open your mouth. Boaz had already been told about Ruth before he ever walked toward her. Love that looks like God's love starts with eyes that are actually open. Third, real commitment is said out loud, before witnesses, when it costs you something. Don't love her quietly while keeping your options open. Don't protect her privately and then hesitate publicly. If it's real, say it. Declare it. Stand up for it in the light. That is what Boaz did, and that is exactly what she deserves. I don't know where you are right now. Maybe you're a man who's been asking, quietly, honestly, what kind of man you actually want to be. Maybe you love someone, and you're not sure how to show it the way it deserves to be shown. Maybe you've been hurt, and trust feels like a risk you're not sure you're willing to take again. I get it. I really do. But here is what the story of Boaz says to you. God still makes men like this. Not perfect men, but men who choose right when no one is watching. Men who see people instead of transactions. Men who stand up in public when it would have been so much easier to walk away. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. That word, mercy, in the Hebrew is hesed, the exact same word. The love Boaz showed Ruth, the love God shows us, every morning, whether we deserve it or not. By His grace, you can be that kind of man. If this video spoke to something in you, share it. Send it to a man who needs to hear it tonight. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, and I will be back next week with the story of a man who was called by God to love a woman who had already left him. The story of Hosea, the story of Gomer, and it will absolutely wreck you in the best possible way. Thank you for being here. God sees you. He always has.